Board's meeting that is scheduled for October 3rd, I guess it is, isn't it? Anyway, welcome, and I'll call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. Typically, we have 9 members, and we've got 5 here today, so we do have a quorum, so we can move forward with business. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at the agenda? And if so, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. How about a second?
Second.
Second from Josh. Okay, any further discussion about the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Have you had a chance to take a look at the minutes of our last meeting? I received mine Friday, I think it was. Are there any corrections there too, or do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Got a motion, Mr. Hughes, and how about a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Holmes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. All right, the next item on our agenda is a public hearing regarding administrative changes to the zoning ordinance. And the number related to zoning ordinance change is ZPH 2011-00083. Debbie, if you would you please present to us the proposed administrative changes?
Yes, sir. These are changes that are for clarification in some instances, others having to do with the retaining wall. Definition is from the retaining wall ordinance that was passed previously, and these are just to add to the zoning ordinance. One is the definition of a retaining wall. Then we also propose a change to the definition of structure so that it would exempt from setbacks small outbuildings that do not require building permits, utility poles and fences less than 10 feet in height, and on-premise signage. Also adding a definition for utility pole. We also, associated with the dimensional requirements table, there is a sentence that says dimensional requirements for buildings and land in the zoning district shall be in accordance with that table. And we propose to change from building to the word structure to include things such as cell towers, just to be more clear as to what is included in those requirements. Then also in the conditional use section of the ordinance, we propose to add an inclusion for retaining walls to be shown on plans for conditional use permits, and then also to require elevation renderings for conditional use permit applications.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions of staff before we open it up for public hearing? Okay. I don't. I think this is, what I recall we had discussed previously, frankly. Okay. Having heard none, we want to go ahead and invite the public to make any comments regarding these proposed administrative changings. So we'll open our meeting up to the public comment portion, again related specifically to these administrative changes that are proposed. Do we have anyone that would like to make a comment? Appears that we don't. So I'll close the public comment portion of this process. Okay, back to the planning board. Does anyone have any questions or comments Or would someone like to make a motion to approve these proposed administrative changes as presented to us here today?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the administrative changes and that they are in keeping with the zoning ordinance, and they do meet the, well, let me read the statement of consistency. The amendments regarding the definition of retaining wall, utility pole, and structure, dimensional requirements, and the items to be submitted are necessary and provide remedies within the existing ordinance and standards, as well as clarification, and as such are consistent and do not contradict the comprehensive land use plan and its updates, and that the proposed amendments to the text are reasonable and in the public interest, and they will provide for better administration of the ordinance.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hughes. Would anyone like to second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Mr. Castle seconds. Any further discussion? Okay, having heard none, please signify your acceptance by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the next order of business is the discussion of lighting standards to be including in the zoning ordinance. We, as you might recall, we started down this road at our last meeting, and we have before us, I think, the same document we had the last time. That is some definitions. Was there anything added to that?
No, there's no changes to this. We
Okay.
are still trying to line up an electrical engineer to come and talk to you. And we did look at your request that we give you a list of places that would comply and those that would not with the proposed standards. And looking at that, we realized that without a lighting plan for a project, we wouldn't really be able to say it complies or doesn't, because we don't know the type of fixtures and you know, average light level and things like that for the project. So we are in discussions with the city of Asheville, their lighting inspector. Would you like to have him come and speak at a meeting? He could also maybe supply a lighting plan so you could see what they look like, or maybe even address projects that they know are not in compliance because they were built prior to being annexed into the city, so were built without any lighting standards.
Yeah, I think anything like that would be helpful. I can't recall who suggested that we have you identify some non-compliant as well as some compliant facilities, but any way we can get there through the city or whatever would be very helpful, because I think all of us, obviously, as lay people, really don't understand the talk, can't talk the talk or walk the walk, and that would be, I think, something if you could, if you could bring them on and they could demonstrate us some places we could go out and take a look, it would give us a better handle on what we're dealing with here.
I think one of the general concerns that we're going to face is the perception that if you do like a partial renovation, like for instance the example that I've heard is a canopy at a gas station, if all you do is replace the canopy and the surrounding fixtures are non-compliant, how will we address that? How does the city currently address that? And you know, those are the kinds of things that I think people are going to raise questions about. So the more information we can gain on that, the better off I think we are.
Debbie, I've been working with Weaverville, recently on the same issue on another project. And Progress Energy has a guy named Greg Sturkin, and he has helped many towns, including Weaverville, write these ordinances. And he was really good at communicating to me in layman's terms, this is this and that's that. And like I said, that is a courtesy service. So if somebody wants to contact Progress Energy, they've done this, I'm assuming, hundreds of times. I think they helped a lot of towns develop this ordinance.
We
Have you
have
already
been contacted by them.
Okay.
Okay. Joe, did you have anything?
If everybody else is finished for the moment, I do.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I missed the last meeting, so I appreciate the opportunity to make some remarks and try not to be redundant with what's already said. I watched the video, and I thought there were some really good things. And so let me just say my thoughts in two groups. One, I recall the article that John Creighton sent out in October of 2010. It was a 2007 New Yorker article on how to mitigate light pollution, and sometimes referred to as the Dark Sky Initiative. So I was real pleased to see that. Of course, was pleased to see the commissioners come out earlier this year to kick this thing off. And then, of course, seeing it come before the planning board, I was pleased to further see it. I've had several citizens come to me over time, citizens that live both in the valleys and live on the ridgelines and the mountains, come in and express a desire to see something done. If I could ask a couple of questions. One was, who, for the staff, who made the decision to exclude residential areas?
I can address that. This whole thing came from the commissioners in a workshop that we had earlier this year. And basically, they agreed that they just wanted new commercial, is what they had instructed us to bring to y'all. So that's where that came from.
So they only wanted to address the commercial aspect.
Yes, sir. And that was just like say new commercial is what everybody had agreed on commissioner-wise to do.
Okay. Did they give a reason, a specific reason why they would only address the commercial?
No, not really. I mean, it was just like I say, I think there was, as I recall, there was some discussion, but everybody, like I say, just left it at, I think it was a situation where we just didn't want to impact any more people than we absolutely had to at this time.
All right, thank you, John. As I said, the citizens that have talked to me have lived all over the topography, and I don't think, we know the city had its issue with the angles on Patton Mountain Road, and they took the right actions, in my opinion, there, and that, of course, was a commercial situation. But the citizens that have come to me have been concerned about the residential aspects and the sometimes Christmas tree effect of residential street lights going up peaks and on slopes and so on.
It really, but in the county, subdivision-wise, I don't recall trying to think of a subdivision that we may have that has streetlights. I occasionally get a complaint where the neighbor has put a light in the backyard, a light where you can go to Lowe's or Home Depot. It's kind of similar to a street light on a pole. But I just don't recall us, situations where subdivisions have street lights.
Well, not knowing the county completely, I know of at least one subdivision on a ridge line that does have it, and they, of course, are the omnidirectional lights that go out everywhere. And then there's the issue of the area lights that residents can have, and I hear some complaints about that. So I would, you've already mentioned including the Progress Energy rep, which I think is a great idea, and you've talked about that you're looking at other resources and other ordinances, and I think we should continue to do that. There's tons of information on the web, of course. But I would suggest that we at least, like the gentleman said at the last meeting, that we at least consider street lights in subdivisions and area lights that a resident can bring into. I think that would be a point that wouldn't be too extreme. If I could just shift to some questions I had on the minutes last time, and it's just clarification. Debbie, you indicated that, and this is talking about the Asheville ordinance, the city ordinance, and you said, and Tom asked you if the proposed language was similar to the Asheville ordinance, and you said, well, it's somewhere in the middle. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Well, I wasn't talking specifically about Asheville. I may have misunderstood the question. Of the ordinances we looked at, we came down somewhere in the
Okay.
middle, not the strictest, but not the least restrictive.
Okay, great, thank you.
Do those other ordinances address residential? The ones that y'all looked at?
Yeah, most of them do.
Does the cities? Does the cities address residential?
I believe so.
Okay.
I will add, for what it's worth, in having worked with some of this, you can obviously get these things for residential, but you do add some cost to it. And while it's not huge, it is all contributing, or I guess not contributing to affordable housing. I mean, it is a cumulative effect. And I don't think there's any magic technology in these cutoff fixtures. It's just they know they've got you. If you got to have them, you got to have them, and they do charge a premium for them. So I don't know if that's a consideration or not. But
My next question has to do with the language that gives the zoning administrator the authority to waive the plan requirements for smaller developments where a lighting plan would be substantial expenditure. And this was in response to Scott's question about cost. And I assume that that is on page 5. If help me if I'm making the right reference. It's paragraph F 5, Roman numeral 5, where it says the zoning administrator may waive requirements. Is that the reference that you're talking about?
That's correct.
Okay. And so you're saying the zoning administrator, if in your eyes the cost, if the applicant has demonstrated otherwise, that he or she is in compliance,
Yes,
then
they
you
would.
wouldn't require these certifications by a qualified professional.
The thinking is that for a larger commercial development, they're already going to have an electrical engineer and can develop those plans without much additional costs. For smaller projects, they may not. They do have to demonstrate that they can meet the requirements of the ordinance, but they would be waived from having the plan and the electrical engineer sign off on it.
Okay, thank you. Scott's suggestion on identifying existing sites that meet regulations and ones that would not, I think it's a terrific idea. And I can think of the North Asheville Library as one that you might want to look at. That seems to me that would meet the requirements. They have got the downlighting and restrictions and so on. But I don't know that for a fact. But I think Scott's idea is very good. Michelle's idea that we should speak to some security professionals, I think is a great idea as well. And I know we had good comments from citizens last time. And then one of the comments, and I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this gentleman's name right, is it Argier or Argier? Argier, did I get it right?
That's close enough.
All right, great. Bernie, all right. I appreciated his comment about looking at regulating residential uses, especially pole lights, and that's what we're talking about, area lights and then the street lights, which he mentioned there. And another gentleman mentioned that he would suggest the board look at residential lighting as well, and so did one of our board members. So I think we ought to look at that, and I think it's great to get the experts in to talk about this, and I thank the board for allowing me to catch up, and the staff.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate your comments. I got a comment. I'm going to put my highway contractor hat on just a second. I was reading page 6, the one paragraph at the top, and about temporary lighting shall be an event specific and shall not be permitted for a duration of more than 5 days. certain highway projects for safety and convenience reasons are being performed at night, such as the bridge rehab projects going on throughout the county right now. And that's NCDOT projects. Would they be exempt from this? Would the DOT trump this ordinance? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I believe they
I
would.
believe it would, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would think so too. We need to make sure that at some point in time before we move this on to adopt it for the commissioner's adoption, we need to check it, I guess.
Yeah.
Because that's
I'll
going
double
on
check,
more.
but I believe,
Yeah.
believe those would be okay.
Yeah. I know when it comes to erosion control and stormwater and that type of thing, Mike, it typically does, you know. So I think it's written in there. Okay. Anything else? So we can expect at our next meeting to have a representative from the city of Asheville, at least, and maybe others. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything you can disseminate to us in the meantime regarding facilities that may be compliant or not compliant would be good too, so we could ride out and take a look. Okay. Bernie, do you have anything? All right, well, let's just move on to public comment. You're welcome to come up, and I think most of you know the drill. You've got 3 minutes. Please identify yourself. And would anyone like to go first? Thank you, sir. Good morning.
My name is Jim Brown, B-R-O-W-N. I've been in Buncombe County about 3 years, out in South Buncombe County, King Creek Road area, but I grew up in Swannanoa, moved away for 40 years, worked as a petroleum geologist in oil and gas exploration, and moved back about 3 years ago. Like some of these other fellows, I've gotten interested in this as an amateur astronomer, but I also worked with the city of Midland, Texas about 10 years ago in developing a plan. And I found there that once people became familiar with this issue and understood it better, they saw it as a very common sense issue. I like to look at it as lighting efficiency, because there's no point in illuminating the bellies of birds at night or paying for it with an area light. It's a safety issue. A bright light causes your pupils to shrink. You have less vision at night, so you can't see a burglar looming around your house. It's smart to light things that you want to light and not the sky. So it's an efficiency issue, it's a safety issue, and I think it's a smart issue. So I encourage you to move ahead on this. I think the area lights, street lights are big issues. It's an aesthetic thing. You know, even Walmart now, out on Airport Road and I believe on the River Road, are using full cutoff fixtures in their parking lots. It looks nice. If you fly at night, you notice it. You don't see the light glaring in your eye. You see the ground illuminated. And on buildings, it makes them much more attractive at night. So I'm glad to see you addressing this, and I'll help you in any way I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Who'd like to go next?
Morning.
Morning.
My name is Jeremy Lerner. That's L-E-R-N-E-R. I live in Weaverville. I live in a ridge. We've got my concern is that these lighting standards that are expressed in this document are actually really good. So you might say, well, why am I concerned? It's just that there's some things that really make sense here that can be extended, and I would like to take up the issue of residential. I think from a common sense point of view, there is really little point in having it split between commercial and residential because residential areas grow. I would like to see the concept of focus light because it's wasteful not to. If you put light where you want it, it makes sense. We don't put roads where we don't need them. We don't build bridges to nowhere. If there is an issue in any area that requires light, then let's put light, but not put light where we don't need it. The issue of cost is very relevant here. If you put light everywhere, you're going to pay for it to go everywhere. As far as I know, lighting engineers, they get a light meter and they say, okay, well, we need a certain amount of light to illuminate the ground, and you walk around with the light, right? Well, it's like a flashlight. A flashlight's real bright when you focus it, and it's not so bright when you spread it out. So I think that this ordinance, or these ideas contained in this document, should be actively considered. I think they should actively be considered everywhere. And the whole idea of focus light, if it's front and center, would be great. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Who would like to go next?
Good morning.
Morning.
Pardon me. My name is Calvin Chrisman. I've spoken to you before, resident of the Broad River area. Address is in Black Mountain, but I'm over on a ridge looking down into Guerin Creek, and as I mentioned to you before, at the altitude I am, which is probably 1,000 feet above Guerin Creek, I should not see the lights that are down there. I should see the effect of those lights on the ground, but not the lights themselves. And they are shining up at me and illuminating things that they shouldn't be. And a lot of that is these dusk to dawn yard poles that are right now exempted from what you're doing. So I would encourage you to consider that in what you're doing. The other point I want to make to you today, though, is that there is another consideration here, and we'll share some information with you. But the American Medical Association has come out recently with statements that glare at night is harmful to health for a number of reasons. And there's an analogy made in here. If you think about a windshield that's dirty at night and how that light can smear out, people with cataracts and other things can have difficulty in dealing with improperly focused light at night, and that can cause problems. It has been associated, and there are a number of studies now, that this light glare and trespass into people's homes affects the circadian rhythm, the ability to sleep at night. Enhanced levels of breast cancer and other things are associated with this, and we'll give you the research on this. But it's a broader issue than just one of safety and so forth. There are also health considerations that I think you should take into effect. So I do encourage what you're doing, and hope you can continue with that. Mr. Phillips, just a comment. I certainly wouldn't discourage you from seeking input from everyone as you talk to Progress Energy. It's a company that's out there to make money selling electricity. I love Progress Energy as much as the next man, but I don't want to pay him any more than I have to. And more efficient lighting can actually lower power consumption. So you might want to just listen to what they have to say, but take it with a little bit of skepticism. I think they have tended to want to exempt things that shouldn't be exempted from your regulations. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Chairman and members of the board, my name is Bernard Arguiere, Arghiere. I spoke with you 2 weeks ago. If you could hold my 3 minutes till I just pass this handout to each of you, I'd appreciate that.
Okay.
First, I want to say, as I did 2 weeks ago, the county's done a great job, the staff, with this ordinance. I really think it's a great ordinance. I've worked on the city of Asheville's. I worked on the one for the city of Woodfin, and this is very good, and I appreciate your hard work to do it. It's a great ordinance. There's 3 areas I'd like to make sure get included, though, and one is street lighting, but especially the street lighting that developers put in. There are lots of developments that put in those lights at the top of the front page, the very top row, and those are very glaring. They create a lot of light trespass into neighboring properties. Look below at the lighting of the bottom 3 lights. Those are more ideal. UNCA campus is a good place to go in front of the Zeiss Science Center. They've used these new lights, and they have lots of students on there. Safety is important. These lights create great light, plenty of safety and security, and they don't create glare or light trespass. So that's the kind of standards I'd like to see for streets, especially the ones developers put in. That is commercial. The residents there don't get a choice for those lights, and I get lots of calls. Bernie, these lights are glaring. We'll talk to your developer. It's too late. He's already done it. So Progress Energy sells these lights. I agree. Don't consult with them too much. They like these lights. They're going to tell you to keep them. Next page, residential. I agree also that residential doesn't need to be addressed big in a broad way. It does open a can of worms. I'd address one light, the dusk to dawn security light. That's the one that gets the most complaints. City of Asheville gets more calls about that than any other light. It's 9,500 lumens. That's like 6 100-watt incandescent bulbs all together. It's a lot of light. And they're unshielded. Look at that light on the left. You can get the kind on the right. Unfortunately, Progress Energy wants to charge you $4 or $3 more a month for that one. Almost all of them are installed by Progress Energy with a few exceptions. So this is an easy thing to put in the ordinance because you just tell Progress Energy we don't allow them anymore and they won't install them without a hood. You can still have them, but they need to be shielded. City of Asheville already has an ordinance banning those lights for all new installations. Lastly, and this is an easy one, LED lights aren't addressed. Everyone's moving over to LEDs now, but you need to watch the heat index on those lights. The most glaring ones have heat indexes way above 4,300. You just have to put a line in there. If you use LED lights, keep the heat index below 4,300, and you won't get the most glaring LED lights. If you've seen some of the new cars, some of that real blue light, and it comes at you and it looks like the brights are on, those are really high temperature LEDs, high Kelvin ratings. Same thing's true at street lights. You want to go down lower. That's my points. I hope you consider them and approve this excellent ordinance and possibly consider adding these 3 items that I addressed in this handout. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Board and staff, I'm Craig DeBrew. I work with Progress Energy here in Asheville. I'm a lead account executive, and I work with our large industrial and commercial and governmental accounts. And I would just like to formally offer what Mr. Phillips has suggested. We do have a lot of experience in working on lighting ordinances with both towns and counties, and we've worked in North and South Carolina. And there's a couple of individuals in our organization, as you mentioned, Mr. Phillips. Greg Sturkin is one who's very knowledgeable, as well as a gentleman named Bob Henderson, who was involved in working with the city on their lighting ordinance. And in fact, I think Bob just made contact with Debbie last week and provided her the ordinance for Chatham County, and I think some contact information for their planning director there. So as I'm sure you are beginning to appreciate, this is a fairly technical subject, and it's important. Obviously, the county, you've got an idea of what you desire in a lighting ordinance, but it's important that, you know, the technical rules and the wording actually provide what you want. So excuse me, we'll be happy to work with you in working to achieve that goal. In fact, Greg Sturkin is going to be in town tomorrow and Wednesday, and I've asked him to come by and start that dialogue with Debbie. So again, we're pleased to work with you on it, and just let us know how we can help. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Is there anyone else? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public comment portion of our agenda then. Is there any other business we'd like to discuss? I think we will expect from staff next time to produce somebody from the city to talk to us, and appreciate your input and the handouts as well. Very helpful. Anything else, Joe? You got anything?
Well, I would just enforce the point that seems to continue to come across, is that we need to include residential with regard to street lights and the dawn to dusk area lights.
All right. Okay, thank you. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
About a second. Got a second from Mr. Phillips. Motion from Mr. Hughes. Okay, thank you. Appreciate your participation. Okay, thank you. All right.